The wedding was the kind you see in magazines' golden chandeliers hanging above, white roses everywhere, and a live band playing soft jazz in the corner. Guests moved gracefully in expensive suits and glittering gowns, holding champagne glasses, and laughing at conversations that seemed more about showing off and connecting. Asterisk at the very front. The bride and groom looked like a perfect match, surrounded by cameras and flashing lights. The atmosphere was buzzing, but not for everyone. Asterisk in the far corner of the hall. Away from the dance floor and the endless chatter sat a young woman in a wheelchair. She wore a stunning pastel blue gown, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. But despite her beauty, she seemed invisible to the crowd. Asterisk this was Emily, the CEO's only daughter. A car accident years ago had left her paralyzed from the waist down. She had fought hard to adjust to her new life, but tonight wasn't about her bravery, it was about how the world still treated her differently. Asterisk every so often, a guest's eyes would land on her, but within seconds, they'd look away. Some offered a quick, awkward smile before turning their backs. Others pretended they hadn't seen her at all. The pain in Emily's eyes wasn't from her disability. It was from being treated like she didn't belong. Asterisk she adjusted the pearl bracelet on her wrist, a gift from her late mother, and tried to stay composed. Inside, her heart felt heavy. It was her cousin's wedding. She should have been laughing, dancing, catching up with relatives she hadn't seen in years. Instead, she sat there like an unwanted guest at her own family celebration. Asterisk two waiters passed by, carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres, but neither stopped to offer her anything. Not because they were rude, just because they didn't think to. She was out of the main path, and out of sight often means out of mind. Asterisk. At one point, a group of young women her age passed by, talking about the music and the bridesmaids' dresses. One of them made eye contact with Emily for a second, but quickly turned away, whispering something to her friend. Emily could guess what they said. It wasn't the first time she'd seen pity in people's eyes, the kind that makes them avoid you rather than include you. Asterisk. The loneliness in that crowded hall was suffocating. She could hear laughter all around her, but it felt miles away. She glanced at the large clock on the wall. It had only been 45 minutes since she arrived, yet it felt like hours. Asterisk she thought about leaving early. She could quietly ask the driver to take her home, and no one would really notice. After all, no one seemed to notice she was there now. But a part of her still hoped that maybe one person would come over, start a conversation, make her feel like she was more than just the CEO's paralyzed daughter. Asterisk she took a deep breath and sipped the sparkling water in her glass. Her fingers tapped lightly against the armrest of her wheelchair, a small habit she had when she was anxious. She reminded herself to stay strong. She had survived far worse. Then an awkward evening. Asterisk still, deep inside, there was an ache, a longing for simple human connection. Asterisk across the room, the band began playing a slower, softer tune. Couples moved to the dance floor. Emily watched them, her lips curving into a faint smile. She remembered the days when she loved dancing, when she could lose herself in the music. Now it was another thing she had lost. Asterisk the sound of clinking. Glasses pulled her back. Someone was making a toast. She turned her chair slightly, pretending to be engaged in the moment. But her eyes wandered over the crowd, scanning faces, silently wondering, would anyone see her tonight? Asterisk she didn't know it yet, but her silent wish was about to be answered. In a way she would never forget. Asterisk Emily was still watching the couples on the dance floor when she noticed a man entering the hall from the side entrance. He wasn't like the other guests, no designer suit, no gold cufflinks, no polished arrogance. His suit was simple, a little worn at the edges, but his posture carried quiet confidence. Asterisk beside him was a little girl, no older than 7, wearing a pink dress and white sneakers. She held his hand tightly, her eyes darting around the room with the curious excitement of a child seeing something magical. They moved slowly through the crowd, occasionally stopping to greet someone. The man didn't seem to care about who was important or who was powerful. He smiled at everyone the same way. The little girl, however, had her eyes locked in one direction, toward Emily. Emily noticed the child staring and quickly looked away, not wanting to make her feel awkward. But when she glanced back, the little girl was still looking and smiling. It wasn't a smile of pity. It was the open, genuine smile only a child could give. The girl tugged at her father's sleeve and whispered something. He looked over at Emily, then nodded. Without hesitation, he began walking toward her. Emily straightened in her wheelchair, unsure what to expect. Most people who approached her did so with overly soft voices or forced politeness. But when he stopped in front of her, his tone was warm and casual. "Hi," he said, offering his hand. "I'm Daniel, and this is my daughter, Sophie." Emily shook his hand, a little surprised. "I'm Emily." Sophie stepped forward and handed her a small cupcake from the dessert table. "For you," she said shyly. Emily's heart softened instantly. "Thank you, Sophie. That's very sweet of you." Daniel pulled up a chair and sat beside her, not across, not leaning over her, but right next to her, as if to say, "We're equals here." "I hope you don't mind," he said. "But Sophie here told me it didn't seem fair that you were sitting alone while everyone else was having fun. She insisted we come over and keep you company." Emily chuckled softly. "Well, I appreciate the rescue." They talked. And for the first time that evening, Emily felt like she was part of the celebration. Daniel asked about her hobbies, her work, her thoughts on the wedding. Sophie told her about her favorite cartoons and how she once tried to bake a cake without telling her dad, resulting in what she called a chocolate explosion. Their laughter was genuine, and it drew the attention of nearby guests. Some glanced over curiously, wondering who this man was and why the CEO's daughter was smiling so brightly. Across the hall, the CEO himself noticed. He had been busy hosting, but now he stood still, watching the scene unfold. For years, he had seen people treat his daughter like a fragile ornament rather than a person. Tonight, for the first time in a long while, someone saw her for who she truly was. Eventually, Daniel stood and said, "Well, I should probably let Sophie go dance before she explodes from excitement." But before he could leave, Emily said, "Wait, would you two stay for a little longer?" They did. And soon, others began to join in, drawn by the laughter, the warmth, the simple humanity of the moment. A few relatives came over to say hello, then some old friends, and before Emily knew it, she wasn't in the lonely corner anymore. She was surrounded by conversation, by people, by life. Later that night, as the celebration wound down, the CEO approached Daniel. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Daniel asked. "For reminding everyone, including me, that kindness doesn't need an invitation." Daniel smiled, shook his hand, and walked away with Sophie. Emily sat there, watching them leave, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The wedding had been beautiful, but the real gift was the reminder that sometimes it takes just one voice, one gesture, to change everything.